Shakur Stevenson finally reacts to Gary Russell Jr., a guy he's sparred in the past, losing in upset fashion to Magsayo, and he says he believes if Gary was healthy, he would have got the stoppage. We're going to talk about that. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. I'm the best in the business doing it right now. 2022, it's up. Throw a like on the video, subscribe, all that good stuff. We got to get into Mr. Shakur Stevenson, Newark's own. Now, Shakur Stevenson, in his post on his verified Twitter, this is what Shakur Stevenson had to say. I respect Gary Russell for fighting through that injury last night. A lot of fighters would have tucked their heart. And you see Magsayo's promoter, Sean Gibbons, says, Viva Gary Russell. He does have heart, right? And I agree with this statement. This is really what I said in my post-fight video. If you haven't checked that, make sure you check that on the channel. The videos are up, and I give it to you Little Caesar style, hot and ready. Shakur Stevenson responded to a fan who said, you should postpone if you are hurt, champ. Shakur says, I agree, but when you haven't fought in 2 years and you itching to get back in the ring as a fighter, I understand it. See, and he's telling you something that only fighters understand, that beast within and what it feels like. Gary Russell Jr. hasn't fought in 2 years, so he probably believed he had enough to beat Magsayo even wounded. And real talk, I know a lot of fighters personally from my years in the game, and this is not uncommon at all. In fact, first of all, the thing is, unless somebody is to lose, you won't really find out who was injured, because if you win and you're injured, then it doesn't really matter. But if you lose and then you carried on an injury, people are going to say you're making excuses, and you know what it is, but that's when it usually comes out. For example, Andre Ward, Supreme Fighter, he beat Kovalev the first fight, and unbeknownst to outsiders, that he was injured in the first fight, right? He was injured, and he said he basically couldn't do his road work like he normally would because of I think it was a nagging knee injury at the time. But although he's a champion fighter with the champion spirit, he just decided to get through it. And he was in with the super dangerous puncher as well, you know, even more decorated than Magsayo, in Sergey Kovalev, and he didn't postpone the fight either. So again, a lot of fans, I understand both sides. I understand some people would say, hey, just postpone it, but it's not as easy. Like, outside of what Shakur Stevenson just said as the fighter angle, you have to understand this is somebody's livelihood, you know what I mean? And if you haven't fought in 2 years, who knows what Gary Russell does? Like, you know what I mean? This is your money. Imagine you being a union worker or like construction worker, and then because of the pandemic, you didn't fight for, or you didn't work construction for 2 years. You know, if you're not on unemployment or something, then that's going to be a hard 2 years. You're going to have to blow through your savings and things like that. So you have to understand, and I always try my best as, you know, someone who respects and protects the sport of boxing, to give you guys that different perspective and really humanize the affair. Like, these guys are humans. Gary Russell, again, he thought he could beat him, and it is what it is. But from multiple stances, Shakur Stevenson's telling you, and others, and I'm telling you, you know, there's multiple things you have to think of. One, he thought he could probably beat him, and, you know, his shoulder was good enough to get through the fight. And clearly in the fourth round, that wasn't the case. Shakur also said a 100% healthy Gary would stop that guy, if you ask me. And this is, again, the guy who sparred with Gary Russell Jr. It's ironic to me, because certain people have said there's no race in boxing. Race doesn't matter. You know, it's all about your heart, and, you know, a lot of BS, basically. Now, I'm not saying it's about race to everybody, but there's definitely a pool of fans where that matters, because I received comments like almost as if I lost. Some people were saying, oh, black fighters are all losing and this and that, and Gary Russell finally lost and he's no longer holding the belt hostage, or this and that, and black people don't have any fight. Just a ton of senseless comments. And you would almost think that Magsayo fought for another promoter, because a lot of the usual suspects that tend to usually hate premier boxing champions and PBC and or black fighters, they were almost celebrating that Gary Russell had lost. It was like their day was made. And I don't even know if everybody even watched the fight, but it wasn't even that type of fight. It wasn't like a scintillating fight with nonstop action, or as if Gary Russell got bodied and, was 2 punches away from being knocked out. It wasn't even that type of fight, to be honest. And if we're being fair, all things considered, Gary Russell, to me, was more impressive because he was clearly impacted or wounded or handicapped or whatever you want to call it. He was impaired with one arm, and the commentators knew this the whole time because they kept saying it, yet they were like riding Magsayo as if he was doing all this wonderful work. And listen, I have no problem with Magsayo. Congrats to him. But at the end of the day, you would expect a guy like Magsayo, who physically looked a lot bigger, he had youth on his side. You would expect, if he's in there with a one-handed fighter and he just knocked out a fighter from Mexico in his last fight, Ceja, with one punch, you would really tend to think that he would do better with a smaller, older, 2-year inactive guy who's been on the couch for 2 years, Gary Russell. Now you can see why the NBF list was created. That stands for no black fighters, because you had a wounded fighter who happens to be African-American black, and he was still in there with his wits about him defensively, and he was defensively responsible, and he was moving and evading danger, and he didn't brutally get knocked out. Unlike Magsayo's last opponent, who in highlight reel fashion and potential knockout of the year fashion got brutally knocked out, and he had both of his hands to him. Styles make fights, and his opponent out of Mexico had that style where it's just, sink or swim, do or die, and he just ended up getting caught. Gary Russell, that takes a lot of energy, and really outside of regular conditioning, that takes an insane amount of mental conditioning to be in there with someone younger, bigger, stronger, and not pack it in and look for a way out. Because there was a point in the fight where the doctors came over to Gary Russell Jr. and they were like, "You good? Blah, blah, blah." And they were like, that would have been the moment out for some people, like Victor Ortiz. Victor Ortiz, when he fought Maidana, he's like, "I don't know, dude. You're literally talking to a tree, bro. I just think I'm too young to be getting beat up like this." Gary Russell could have been packed it in, so that deserves respect, because there was a moment where the doctor was tugging on his shoulder, his bad shoulder, and he's wincing like, nah, I'm good. So everything, I appreciated when Gary Russell talked that talk post-fight where he's like, "I'm a dog, I'm a warrior." Nah, Slim, I didn't think about postponing the fight. I'm a warrior. This is what I do. And he proved that, because, he's a soldier. That's like a soldier getting shot, and he's still trying to dump on the enemy and still trying to, trying to capture the enemy and complete the mission. Whereas somebody gets shot and they might mess around and go into panic and shock and tuck their tail because they've never been shot before and they don't know how to act. So very gutsy performance. And, people can brag like, "Oh, Gary Russell lost," but he lost with honor. Like, there was no real bad side to him. It just showed me that what I already knew about Gary Russell is that he really is a dog. He's really about that, and that's, he told you he had an injury before the fight even started. His dad is ill. So, he's had some other stuff. His little brother got killed. There's a lot of stuff. And again, a lot of fighters or a lot of fans, they don't really humanize boxing. They don't look at none of that. They're like, "Oh, I don't care how the black fighter lost." So, it is what it is. I'm just giving you my opinion. Shout out to Gary Russell and Magsayo. They both tried their best. That's what you can expect from boxing. Shout out to Shakur Stevenson. He should have a big fight coming with Oscar Valdez. But yeah, the game is corny with all the you know, the bigots in the sport and looking for these opportunities and celebrating like, come on, Gary, knowing if they get a sore throat, they'll call in to work. And that's not even like somebody trying to take you out of here. And it's just crazy. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like the internet is the new liquid courage, where people who can't even weather a common cold and they call into work because they're feeling ill or because they chose to drink the night before and they're so badly hungover. These are some of the people leaving these comments like, oh, Gary Russell, ah, ha, ha, ha. You know, and I mean, if that's how you get your kicks, then it is what it is. But I'm going to celebrate the soldiers of the sport, the sweet science. Gary Russell, he was about that action. And it really makes me wonder if he was healthy, like Shakur Stevenson is saying, what the outcome would be. But the outcome was what it was. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. Let me know how I did in the video. As always, hate, comment, and subscribe. Tell this video, Ego signing off. The future is now. The Hibernation 5s by Kenichi Bear. Hybrid gaming and lifestyle headphones. Out of the box, you can connect to any console or PC. Bluetooth ready with a low latency USB adapter, color RGB, and extreme bass mode. The Hibernation 5s adjust to you. Whether you need a gaming, travel, gym, or lifestyle headphones, the Hibernations got you covered. The new Hibernation 5s, link in the description. Customize the way you hear the world. Welcome to the nation. Are you tired of your YouTube videos not getting any views? Well, consider TubeBuddy. I've used TubeBuddy for years to scale up my YouTube channel. Now we're sitting over 200,000 subscribers. TubeBuddy is a browser extension that offers a ton of built-in productivity and time-saving services to take your channel to the next level. Use my link in the description to get started with TubeBuddy and level up your channel faster. We working.